Treachery. Dark was the night and weird the atmosphere. It rained from time to time. Flashes of lightning revealed fearful faces. Along with the roar of thunders and the howl of jackals was heard the eerie laughter of spirits. But King Vikram did not divert a bit. He returned to the ancient tree, climbed it, and brought the corpse down. However, as soon as he began crossing the desolate cremation ground with the corpse lying behind on his shoulder, the vampire that possessed the corpse said, "O king, I know not what is the ideal that has inspired you to undertake such pains. Sometimes people take unexpected steps to realize the ideals they cherish. Let me cite an example to prove my point. Listen with attention. That might bring you some relief." The vampire went on. Years ago lived a sage who decided to found a school. The school was meant to impart moral and ideal education. The sage hoped that students passing out of his school would serve the country well. He roamed about raising funds for the school, but that took most of his time. He could not pay sufficient attention to the education of the students. "Let me ask the king to finance the school. That should end my worry," he thought. But the king, upon hearing his appeal, said, "Good man, if you could run the school all these days without my help, why can't you continue to run it? Besides, if you're bringing out ideal boys, their parents ought to help you." The sage was in no mood to argue with the king. He returned disappointed and thought of closing down the school. Unexpectedly, a man named Jagatsingh met the sage and said, "Please do not close down the school. I shall give you all the money you need." "Who are you?" asked the sage. "Never mind that. You will get your money regularly on the first day of every month," replied Jagatsingh. The sage felt highly encouraged. Jagatsingh kept his word. He submitted his donation without fail. On inquiry, the sage learned that Jagatsingh was a well known philanthrope. People thought highly of him. Days passed. One day, a shocking news reached the sage. He heard that Jagatsingh, who posed to be a philanthrope, was in fact the chief of a notorious gang of bandits. His secret activities had come to the king's knowledge. The police were trying to catch him, but he had gone into hiding. The sage met the king's minister and asked him if it was true. The minister gave him all the proofs and convinced him that Jagatsingh was a dangerous bandit. He had even a hand behind the death of some men who tried to expose him. A week after this information had reached the sage, Jagatsingh came to the sage to hand over his donation. "I am grateful to you for your help. I pray to God to save your soul. But you ought not to escape the consequence of your activities in the society," said the sage. He then clapped his hands. Police who were in hiding sprang out and took hold of Jagatsingh at once. The king thanked the sage and gave him the necessary funds to run the school. The vampire paused for a moment and then demanded of the king, "Tell me, O king, how could the sage take recourse to such treachery? But for Jagat Singh, his school would have closed down. How could the sage forget that? Where was the need for his pleasing the king by betraying Jagat Singh? How could he accept help from the very king who had once refused to help him? Answer me if you can. Should you keep mum despite your knowledge of the answer, your head would roll off your shoulders," answered King Vikram forthwith. Had the sage accepted Jagat Singh's donation, knowing him to be a bandit, and then helped the police in capturing him, we could have accused the sage of treachery. But that was not the case. The sage had a mission, and that was to serve the country by producing ideal boys. Had he let Jagat Singh remain at large, he would have gone against his own ideal. The sage had no personal ambition. He had founded the school for the welfare of the people. It is with the same motive that he got the bandit arrested. He had no intention of pleasing the king. The king was pleased because the bandit was caught. It would have been foolish to refuse the king's help for the school. The king's treasury was meant for the welfare of the people. No sooner had King Vikram concluded his answer than the vampire, along with the corpse, gave him the slip. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Do provide your feedback in the comment section below. Thanks for listening.